Welcome to Lynn Cullen Live. Talk radio without the static. Email your questions and comments to lynncullenshow@gmail.com. And now your host, Lynn Cullen.
Hello there, and welcome to Lynn Cullen. What is this show called? The Lynn Cullen Live? Did she say the Lynn Cullen Show? I don't even know what my show is called, but I know Lynn Cullen Live. Yeah, that's it. I just saw a picture of it. Okay, so, guys, it's Thursday, June 26th, 2025, and I am under orders by yours truly because of Rich from the North Hills, to have the last Thursday of every month be what he called a Throwback Thursday. And that, means different things to different people. What clearly it means is Donald Trump is not the president. We are not engaged in, seeing our country come apart at the seams. Because back in the day, talk radio did deal with what was in the news. Somehow, though, the news didn't usually seem quite as horrific as it does today. And it was a more eclectic affair where we could talk about just about anything, and did. And the other part that I miss most, and there's no getting that back, is that the audience was not segregated as it is today, based on political point of view. It was AM radio, and people had AM radios in their cars and in their houses, and they tuned in to talk radio. And they were of all types, sizes, and points of view. And so the audience was eclectic. The topics were eclectic. The hosts were individual personalities. It was really a rich, wondrous environment. It really was, and I do miss it as well. It's one of those things where we didn't know what we had till it was gone, but then it was. So I was sitting here thinking, this is hard now because unfortunately what I do has become so much more political and so much more fraught and so much more awful, that it's hard for me to make this switch even once a month. I think for some people, they just want to talk about the way things were, things we miss, a life that has disappeared. I got this letter from Susan, not my sister, but she said this about Throwback Thursday: the good old days. No cell phones, computers, landlines with full dials, fun dials for your fingers to get a ride, encyclopedias, kids on bikes instead of screens, making a tent in the backyard with a friend to sleep in and just laugh and talk, neighbors chatting and yelling at kids who aren't their own, kickball, fresh bread delivery. That I never had. We had milk, but I don't remember fresh bread. Taking a walk, meeting the new neighbors, cutting the grass with a manual mower, hanging clothes on a line to dry. A much simpler time. Yeah. But, it's gone. And what we're barreling into, there's no stopping, no matter how much we want to scream, stop! This doesn't, in many ways, look like it's good for humans, but there's no stopping it. So, anyway, trying to do a Throwback Thursday show. Um, I I found myself just a few minutes before the show began, as I often do, that the last 4 or 5 minutes I'm sitting here, I don't quite know what to do. I keep a magnifying mirror and a tweezers. Here I'm telling you things well, you're friends. A magnifying mirror and a tweezers right here next to me with all the other stuff that I consider my show stuff. And I pick up the tweezers. I dare to look at my face, and then I start plucking random hairs that have grown in places that hairs never used to grow. And I have to do this because otherwise I'd look like, yeah, a bearded lady, I think. I'm plucking hairs out of my chin. And because I'm a brunette, ooh, there's one right there. Um, and because I'm a brunette, they're black and I have white skin. And so, and there was once I found one that was like, I swear it was like over an inch and a half long. It was hiding under me, and people had to have seen it and didn't tell me. God. So I don't trust any of you to tell me anymore. And it's not like you can tell a stranger, but I mean, you expect your friends to tell you. So I sit here plucking errant hairs. That's what I do right before the show. Not all the time, but I was today. And then as I was doing it, I recalled reading just recently about how other people who are performers, either on stage or movies or venues such as this, how they if do they have rituals that they engage in to prepare for the show? So right before they go on, what is it they do? And I was reading some of these things, and mostly it was boring, I thought, but some people do some very odd things. They meditate. Well, I don't know if it's odd. Meditate, get their head together, jump up and down, limber up. But the one that freaked me out was Jeff Daniels, the actor. Well, having gone to acting school, I can attest to the fact that when you go to like a speech, you always have to take speech classes, and in it you discover that there's important stuff for an actor to know about your body, your diaphragm, your breath, your air, how you form words, your tongue, your lips. And if you're a stage actor especially, you got to those are body parts that have to be limbered up before you go out and do what you do. And since I perform with my mouth, I probably should be doing these things as well rather than plucking errant hairs from my chin. But I got to share with you what Jeff Daniels does because this is a serious actor. Now, I personally could never do this kind of thing because I've been with actors who do them. Actually, I had an actor staying in my home not too long ago, and she performs, and she was about to go out and do a performance, and she excused herself and went upstairs, and I heard her up in her room. Well, doing what? Here's what She wasn't doing exactly this because they often. I won't. I won't subject you to too much of this, but here's what Jeff Daniels said, and this is from the New York Times. He says, I always start with a diaphragm supported butta gutta butta gutta butta gutta. And he does that a number of times. Followed by a parade of vowel sounds, A, E, I, O, U, where then I add a consonant. For instance, say, see, sigh, so, su. And then I do tay, ti, tai, to, tu. Fee, fi, fo, fi, so he goes on. And it was like when I heard her making these strange sounds from the upstairs room. And then Jeff Daniels, he ain't done. So he says, I do all that. I go through all the consonants, ending with a hard R. Ray, re, ri, ro, ru. Climaxing by using, and this is the thing, listen to this and picture this. Climaxing, he says, by using my outstretched tongue to spell the alphabet in large capital letters 2 inches in front of my face. Go ahead. Tongue 2 inches in front of your face and make capital letters, the entire alphabet. Jeff Daniels does it before he does any of his acting performances. And as he says, it ain't pretty, but it works. Let me see. Well, yeah, it does stretch things out. You wouldn't want to have anybody see you doing it. But so little do you know that when you see Jeff Daniels playing a role, he's gone through all these, verbal and mouth oral exercises to ready his instrument. Well, so anyway, that's yeah. Now last last Throwback Thursday, I sort of managed to because it gets you in a nostalgic kind of a mood, the very idea of throwback. So I did find myself going through some of these papers, boxes, God knows what of stuff that I keep intending to organize from my television career, and I had come on this eulogy that I had written for a wondrous character named Mossy Murphy, who died way too young, who was a political operative and just incredible, as I said, character. And I shared that with you, and I got a lot of positive feedback. So I am today going to share with you another eulogy. I can't find any good obits lately. If I had a good obit, I'd do it, but I'm not finding them. At least not any that are tickling me and making me say, "Oh, I gotta share this life." But the eulogy for today is the longtime anchor man, Paul Long, who in no way looked like the anchormen of today. He wasn't pretty. He was bald and rotund and bespectacled, but he had a great voice and a sharp mind and a cute sense of humor. And he had himself wanted to be an actor and had acted, in fact. But I adored him, and our desks were together, and we had a true friendship. And when he died, I was asked to do a eulogy. So here it is, because many of you obviously knew this guy too. What a blessed bunch we are to have these stories to share. I obviously said this after others had shared stories. My guess is a man whose memory brings this much laughter is a man who lived his life fully and well. I loved this old man. Just seeing him sitting at his desk in the back of the newsroom, scowling at the computer screen, his two index fingers jabbing at the keyboard, made me feel like all was well, or as it was supposed to be. Or watching him barrel down the hall, bent about 30 degrees at the waist, arms pumping, that magnificent head of his, with its scars and scabs thrust forward, a bulldozer, a bulldog. He was always moving fast, faster than it seemed he had need to. He was a wondrous man. He took me flying once. Twice would have required a tranquilizer gun and a straitjacket. It was to be just a short trip from here to Latrobe, but it was the longest flight of my life. At one point, Paul let go of the controls and told me, "Fly the plane." Protesting loudly, I grabbed the controls in front of me, and the plane shot up in a frightening climb, and then overcompensating, down it went in a stomach-churning dive. I was screaming. The poor photographer who was in the back was screaming, and Paul continued ignoring the both of us. He sat there unperturbed, serene. This went on for apparently an eternity. I exaggerate only slightly. And finally, Paul took the controls back, and we approached the Westmoreland County Airport. We circled once, lined up with the landing strip, descending, and then it happened. A red light started blinking ominously on the control panel, accompanied by a blaring alarm. Beep, beep, beep. "What's wrong? What's wrong?" I yelled. There was no answer. "My God, what's happening?" That was the poor photographer in the back. Again, no answer from Paul. The alarm, beep, 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 continuing, incessant, insistent, something clearly very wrong. "What is it?" I begged Paul to explain as the ground got closer and closer. And finally, he answered in a deadpan, unemotional voice. "The landing gear aren't down." The scream from the photographer on that was ear-splitting. "Oh my God, we're going to crash!" The same thought had occurred to me. Paul, meanwhile, seemed oblivious to the terrified screams in his cockpit and the blaring alarm the airplane was emitting. And then, as the ground was almost close enough to touch, it was suddenly quiet, and we touched down, gently, gracefully, smoothly, perfectly. We had not been killed, although I must admit I was feeling murderous. "I thought you said the landing gear weren't down," I said, as adrenaline rushed through my shaking body. "They weren't," came the answer from Paul. staring straight ahead as he taxied down the runway. I hadn't put them down yet. He treated us to lunch at the airport. I don't recall eating a thing. On the return trip, an air traffic controller radioed Paul to be aware of a small plane at 3 o'clock. Paul and I both looked in that direction, and Paul asked me, "See anything?" "See anything?" I shrieked. "The pilot has wavy brown hair and a mole under his left eye." I actually, it turns out, got off easy that day. I was told later that Paul, on long flights, would put on the autopilot and take a nap. He was a world-class napper. He could fall asleep at the drop of a hat and hit the ground running the second he woke up. I once heard the director of the 6 o'clock news, Bob Watt, give the following instructions to the cameras during a newscast. "Ready to wake up Paul. Take 2. Cue Paul." No one watching at home had a clue as Paul lifted that huge head and intoned the next story. He had power napping down to a science. We shared a computer, and one day I turned to find him slumped over the keyboard. I was alarmed initially, but then it became clear he was just sleeping. And his left hand was resting on the keys, and one letter was repeating endlessly on the screen, line after line after line. And of course, that letter was the Z. Even unconscious, Paul was the consummate performer. What a huge, wondrous personality he was. What a contrary, opinionated, passionate, and funny man. What an imposing and yet gentle man. His laugh said a lot about him. It came so easily and honestly. He'd throw back that grand head of his and the laugh would erupt, real, just like Paul, real. And look at the laughter he left behind. What a grand life this dear man lived, and he lived it without believing in a promise of a reward when it ended. I think that's courageous, and of course, contrary. And that too was Paul. I'll miss him. Okay, that's my eulogy for Paul Long. I was glad I said the part at the end about him being a non-believer, because he was very much a non-believer, because I don't think he would have been happy with the funeral, because it was there was a lot of invocation of God by the minister who was present, and every time I was thinking, oh gosh, Paul, waiting for him to rise from his casket, uh, because whatever. Anyway, for him, I'm glad I set that record straight. Oh, guys. So 2 more things about television at WTAE that might be interesting. I used to do the cerebral palsy telethon with Joe DiNardo, the weather man, and I couldn't believe it. the producer, a woman, told me the night before to please wear flats. And I said, well, no, I can do it in my heels. I thought she was thinking of my, the physical arduousness of being on my feet for hours and hours and hours doing the telethon. And that wasn't what she was thinking. She wanted me to wear flats because it made me just a little bit taller than Joe DiNardo. In heels, I was obviously really taller. And I got so pissed. I, she said, I said, you're kidding me, right? And she said, well, it makes the two shot, that's the two of us in the same frame, it just will make the two shot look better. I said, you mean it'll make the two shot look like the world is supposed to look, with a man taller and more dominating and the woman smaller? And she had nothing to say to that. I wore heels. But one of the telethons I'll never forget. Um, I was taking a turn on the phone bank along with a bunch of volunteers. We had a tier of a two-tiered uh, bunch of phones, probably about maybe 20 people in all, and answering the ringing phones of people calling in to give. And I was seated in the front and taking calls and taking pledges. And Joe had the mic at the time, and he started walking toward the phones and stopped at the person next to me and and it said to the audience, let's see what some of our volunteers are hearing from you in the audience. And he says to he tells the person sitting next to me, you can just put your caller on hold. And she said, excuse me, I'm on. And he asked her, so what are you hearing, and blah 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 blah. And meanwhile, I'm getting a call. And the call I'm getting is an obscene phone call. Hey, I got Lynn Cullen. Hey, baby. So here's a guy, he sees me, he's talking to me, and he starts saying all these, you know, what obscene phone callers say. And Joe DiNardo is heading toward me, and I thought, oh God, don't, just don't. I mean, because if I can you imagine? I didn't, but and he didn't. I stuck the phone. Can you imagine what a moment it would have been if he said, "And Lynn, oh, who are you talking to?" Well, Joe, I've got an obscene phone caller here. But I did not. I pushed the little button down and got him out of there. But so no one ever knew. God. Um. Okay. Another thing I found. I'll just share it. It's a quick little letter. It's a postcard actually that I got from somebody named Mary Groth. She signs it sincerely. Dear Lynn, My boyfriend and I enjoy watching you and think you are very good at your job. However, my boyfriend thinks you would look much prettier in a mini skirt and boots. If you should decide to dress like that, don't do it on a Wednesday or a Sunday night because we both work those 2 nights. Sincerely, Mary Groth. You can't make it up. You can't make it up. Actually, that letter was sent to me in the early stages of my career. That was a letter from someone when I was on television in Madison, Wisconsin, and doing the weather, so they could see my whole body. And he wanted me in a mini skirt and boots. Oh, God. I am so happy I kept this stuff. I mean, do you keep letters? I mean, letters are so precious. And so real. Uh, and you can revisit them. Now, I know all the texts and stuff we're sending each other, they're still all there, but we generally don't, right? Revisit them. There's something about something on paper. And I will, on these Throwback Thursdays, use some of the time to maybe share some of the letters that I have saved. I have an entire folder of letters that are simply from Cyril Wecht. Some handwritten, some typed, some congratulatory, some accusatory. It runs the gamut, and they're just a wondrous compilation of of, of who Cyril Wecht was as this sort of mercurial personality. Um, okay, one more thing. One more thing that's related to that period, and then I'll stop. Um, So I was in Madison, Wisconsin as a weather girl and then an anchor woman, and then they gave me a TV talk show that aired. Um, it was a half-hour show that aired before Walter Cronkite and the CBS Evening News, and then our local news came on after that. It was unbelievable. So I was a lead into Walter Cronkite, and there's a million stories I can tell from that. But um, when I decided to, well, my marriage broke up, and my husband had a budding legal career, and we were a pretty high profile young couple in a relatively small town, and it occurred to me that I should probably leave. Um, and and so I sent a I didn't know what to do. Somebody told me that you got to get in touch with a headhunter. There are these people. You put a tape together of your work. I've never done it before, and see if a headhunter will think they can get you a job, and then they take a cut um, of your salary. So I did a little research. That probably meant going to the library, if you can imagine, and saw that the big headhunter was a woman in New York named Shirley Barish. And I got a phone number and I called her. And man, she did get on the phone, and she sounded like a cross between Foghorn Leghorn and Selma Diamond. If you know the actress Selma Diamond, like just this loud New York Jewish woman, a piece of work. And send me your tape. So I sent her the tape, and she loved it. And she said, "Man, I can get you a job in a minute. Just hang on." So in a minute, I get an offer from WTAE-TV in Pittsburgh, and I end up accepting that job. And I came here in January of 1981. And I'm here laboring as a weekend report. I mean, I had come down, and you come to the bigger market and you get dropped in status. I was a weekend reporter, and doing some general assignment reporting during the week, and wasn't particularly happy about that. And then USA Today, you'll recall, I guess it's still around, right? USA Today was a big to do then. And it was 1 year later, 1982, and there was this big story in USA Today about Shirley Barish, my headhunter. And in the story, trying to, in the story, they quoted my boss, the general manager of WTAE television in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And in fact, here's the quote from the article, which I was avidly reading. Fred Young, general manager of Pittsburgh's WTAE-TV, recalls getting a call from Barish. "This gal is terrific, and you know where I found her? In Madison, Wisconsin." So I'm reading that, and I'm thinking, oh my God, she talking about me? And then the next line of the article says, Young hired her, but he's afraid to have her name mentioned in the paper. Quote, "There's always some news director passing through town and then calling her to offer twice as much money." So I'm reading this and I said, "What? What?" So I essentially am mentioned in an article in USA Today, but my name will not be mentioned because the guy who writes my checks doesn't want me to know how much I'm really worth. Well, needless to say, I did a little more looking around and got myself an agent, a New York agent. And wow, I got me the best. She was representing at the time Dan Rather and Diane Sawyer, and she took me on, and suffice to say, she very quickly renegotiated my contract and got me a whole lot more money. So all because USA Today ran that article on Shirley Barish, who got me to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I wouldn't be here otherwise. And the general manager at the time, yeah, wouldn't say my name. I love this. Okay. Oh, I mentioned texting before, what we do now these days to communicate. And I should have realized it would happen, but after the last presidential election, it was before that election that I'm assuming you too, that we started getting just constant texts from Kamala Harris, from other Democrats running, right, from the DNC, from whatever, saying, you need money, 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 guys, give me money. And I should have realized that once they got your number. And so I'm sure, like you, I literally used to be my texts were people I wanted to talk to. And my texts now are one politician after another from everywhere. They're running for, dog catcher in Colorado. They're running for who knows what, where. And they all got my number and they're all asking me for money. And so I literally am deleting as many, every time I pick up my phone, I'm deleting as many as 5 or 6 of these damn things that have come in since I last picked up the phone. And I press delete, and what comes up is it says delete or delete and report junk or cancel. And I always push delete and report junk. When I first started doing that, I assumed that meant that they would stop that from getting. It doesn't stop anything. Will somebody please tell me, this is just a pet peeve of mine, okay? Why do I have to go through the second thing of delete and report junk if reporting junk doesn't do a damn thing? Why report it? It suggests that they will then block these people. They don't block them. What the F is that delete and report junk thing? I'm just saying. Pet peeve. We got a caller here. Hello.
Hello. I'm sure glad maybe you don't save my letters.
How do you know?
There's a lot of stuff in there to get me committed,
So,
I got a piece of nostalgia for you today.
Okay.
This Saturday marks 55 years since the last baseball game was played at Forbes Field.
Oh, wow.
A great place that I spent my youth, and I'm sorry to say you never saw the place or were in the place.
No.
It was such a wonderful place. You would go up the ramps that were dark as can be, just a little bulb that was trying to light the way, and instantly that smell in your nostril of those rat-tail cigars, the popcorn, the stale beer, and then you came up and then you had this opening under the upper deck and you saw this wondrous green. It was the greenest green you have ever seen in your life, and you were there at the ball game, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I went to the final game, and it was 1970. I was 20 years old. I went with my brother, and we didn't have tickets, so we were going to try to get in general admission, and I didn't think we had a prayer getting in there. So we were in a long, long line. Finally, I get to the top of the line, and I say, "Do you got any tickets? Do you got any tickets left?" And he says, "How many you need?" I said, "I need 2. Okay. He looks, "You're in luck. I got them." Price for admission, $1.75.
For two of you?
Two games. No, one ticket was $175.
$175. Wow.
So altogether was $350 for two. And there was a doubleheader that day.
Wow.
They played the Chicago Cubs, and they won both games at a scores of 2-0 and 4-1. Now, there wasn't anything really memorable about the games themselves, no great plays or anything. But what happened after the game was truly memorable. I sat there and watched 41,000 people become a horde of locusts or a school of piranha. They took everything for souvenirs that they could take. Anything that was nailed on, bolted on, knots, they took everything. They took the bases. I saw guys digging up home plate because that was cemented into the ground. They took restroom signs. They took, you name it. I saw guys come into the stadium with crowbars, and they pried up the seats and took the seats out of the ballpark. Some 2 seats, 4 seats, sometimes a whole row they took out. They went to the scoreboard, which was an old-time scoreboard where you put the numbers in by hand. They were on big little plates, like Wrigley Field and Fenway. They destroyed it. They took everything. Within 5 minutes, it looked like a toothless skeleton. All the numbers were gone. All the names were gone. It was an amazing, amazing thing. And after about a half hour, I said to my brother, Dave, let's get out of here. This place is getting crazier and crazier because these folks were truly out to get everything and anything. And it was just a day I'll never forget.
I must say that, that's an amazing picture you've painted, but it's unattractive in regard to what it says about the fans and the people there.
Yeah, and this was even before the days of memorabilia had kicked in big time like it is now. These people just wanted anything to be a part of their youth, and I stood there and sat there and I watched them tear apart my youth. That's where I spent 14 years of my life seeing the greatest baseball players of all time go through there.
And there was nobody, nobody there attempting to stop any of this.
These were in the days when, you didn't have big security. I mean, there was like 3 cops maybe and a couple security guards. And when that final out hit, they just ran. They went into the dugouts. They were going into the clubhouse, and it was a free-for-all, and people just went nuts.
Wow.
That was 1970 compared to nowadays with tight security where they'll take all the stuff and auction it off, and make money.
Yeah, they make money off it now.
But
wow.
It was unreal. So I thought I'd come up with some song lyrics to sort of say what we thought about on that last day. And you would think I would take me out to the ball game, but no, that's a happy song. This was a sad day. This is baseball's funeral song. This is a dirge. And at first it was written for Ebbets Field in Brooklyn. But then it became known for all the old-time ballparks that are no more. And it's a song that I'll bet you never heard. A lot of people never heard. And the song is called "There Used to Be a Ballpark."
No, I
and
have
you have to
heard
think of it. As if you had this one?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like a funeral dirge.
Yeah.
And there used to be a ballpark where the field was warm and green. And the people played their crazy game with a joy I'd never seen. And the air was such a wonder from the hot dogs and the beer. Yes, there used to be a ballpark right here. And there used to be rock candy and a great big 4th of July with the fireworks exploding all across the summer sky. And the people watched in wonder how they'd laugh and how they'd cheer. And there used to be a ballpark right here. Now the children try to find it, and they can't believe their eyes, because the old team just isn't playing, and the new team hardly tries. And the sky has got so cloudy when it used to be so clear. And the summer went so quickly this year. Yes, there used to be a ballpark right here.
Wonderful. Aw, wonderful.
Have you did you ever go to ball games at County Stadium in Milwaukee?
Yes, not often because I mean Milwaukee is not Green Bay, but I went to a few, and when I was very young, and the Braves it was the not the Brewers, it was the Braves, the Milwaukee
Right,
Braves.
they moved from Boston.
The Milwaukee Braves, and that team that I did see was an astonishing team because it had Hank Aaron.
I could name the starting line of that
It
team. They
had
were phenomenal. They were
Del Crandall, right?
right. Go ahead.
I'm thinking of pitchers. Warren Spahn. First base.
First base.
Damn.
Yeah.
No, I'm blanking. Oh shoot.
Joe Adcock.
Joe Adcock. Oh my gosh. Eddie Matthews on third?
Right.
Who's on second?
Shortstop?
Who's on second?
It might have been Felix Mantilla.
Okay, I don't know. And shortstop?
Maybe. Shortstop was Eddie O'Brien.
Oh, I'm blanking. And
one of the outfielders was Bill Bruton.
Oh, okay, yeah.
That team held the record for most home runs in a season for a long, long time. And in fact, Milwaukee held the record for the greatest attendance in a season for a long, long time. They were the first team to ever go over 2 million in attendance.
Wow, that's amazing.
When they moved to Atlanta, that was quite a shock. That tore the guts out of Milwaukee.
Yeah, tell me about it. I was, it made me never a Braves fan again. And then they started that ridiculous tomahawk chop, which I hated.
Right.
Never, never, never. But what was funny is that when you sang the national anthem before the game, think of the last line of the national anthem.
Right.
And the home of the Braves.
Yeah. And they do the same thing in Baltimore when they hit the word O to start O can you see, In Baltimore O's, they go, oh.
Oh gosh.
So those were great memories, and I still have the smell of those rat tail cigars in my nose and the stale beer. And just to see the ballpark torn apart. When I think of the people I saw play there, Willie Mays and Hank Aaron, and Tom Seaver, and Nolan Ryan, Pete Rose. That was my youth.
Amazing.
When that place came down, and Forbes Field had an amazing past. Also, there was a heavyweight title fight was held there once. The circus was performed there.
Well, I have to tell you, there's a movie in which it stars. What is that movie with
Angels in the Outfield?
Yeah, Angels in the Outfield. So that's my sense of Forbes Field from watching that movie. Right. I get to see it.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. Well, this was what?
It was fun. I sat in every part of that place. I sat in the bleachers. I sat in the upper deck. I watched a game one time when Willie McCovey hit a ball in the upper deck, and he hit it so hard that ball smashed and broke the seat.
Wow.
You could just hear that crack like it was. And I saw Stargell hit about 8 balls over the roof, which was unbelievable. It was just mad. It was just magic time. Time. All for $1.75.
Well, that's just wonderful. Hey, Rich, I now see why you wanted to do Throwback Thursdays, because you're going to be a part of the show. I love it.
Well, I got a ton of stuff here. You're out of time today, but I got a ton of stuff here that I could have picked. I didn't do my bird story. I didn't do jokes about how hot it is.
It's okay.
It's so hot.
Listen, what you did today, you nailed it today. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
And you saved that stuff and helped me out, because I'm struggling for how to remembering how to do this kind of a show. Thank you so much.
I promise I promise I'll be here every Throwback Thursday.
Okay. Thank
Although if
you, Rich.
people hear me too much, it may be Throw Up Thursday. So.
I don't know. I don't think so. I think they'll love it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye. And what do we have? We have, oh, okay, we got like 4. I love them. That's just wonderful. Got 4 minutes left. I've got one. Okay, wait a minute. I'm seeing somebody else writing about Forbes Field. Let's get that in. Dan writes, I believe I saw home plate at the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. The name, it was donated. The name was donated by someone I recognized from my neighborhood. Well, there. So, hey, Rich, I hope you're still listening. So, whoever took the crowbar and pried up home plate, Dan here thinks it was someone from his neighborhood who then did donate it. Might have sold it. Donated it to the Baseball Hall of Fame. Whatever. That's wonderful. Or somebody, who knows how many hands it might have passed through, but that's great. Dan, thank you. Okay, so quickly, I just need to get this story in because uh, Jeopardy watchers, and I watch not consistently, but quite often. On Monday, it was not particularly special. Hey, I think I'm hearing. Rich, are you still there? Because I'm hearing you. You need to hang up, or I'll try to hang you up. There. Usually when I do that, I hang myself up. Okay, so what was I saying? So Jeopardy. And the final question or answer is the way it works, right? The final answer was so ridiculously impossible. It was this. I mean, I remember thinking, what? Here it is. Let me, oh, come on. I thought I had it. I thought I had it written down. Oh, here. In 1896, the Vassar educated wife of this man wrote, thousands of dollars may be paid for a copy of Shakespeare. And I'm thinking, what? It took me forever to even parse that. I'll do it to you again. In 1896, the Vassar educated wife of this man wrote, thousands of dollars may be paid for a copy of Shakespeare. And so I'm thinking, wait a minute, why are we mentioning what? Why that she's what? And they want the man, not the Vassar educated. And I'm thinking, what is that? It just made no sense to me at all. Well, it didn't make any sense to the other. Oh, I just got a thing. A text. They want money. Okay. So the first person didn't have a clue. The second person didn't have a clue. The third person, and everybody at home didn't have a clue. The third person was a woman, and she put up her answer, and her answer was Henry Clay Folger. And that was the right answer. And I'm thinking, whoever even heard of Henry Clay Folger? What? And so that woman who knew that answer wins. The next day, I'm watching the show, and she is introduced as the champion now. And Ken Jennings tells us that she knew the answer to that ridiculous question because Emily Folger the Vassar-educated wife, was the contestant's great-great-great-aunt, Emily. And the contestant's name was Emily Croak, named after her great-great-great-aunt, Emily Folger. Now, what are the odds of being on Jeopardy and having the big question that no one else could possibly have known be about your great-great-great-aunt, Emily? Apparently, there are a lot of people in Jeopardy land that are screaming, foul, foul. But of course, there's no way Jeopardy knew. And anyway, this Emily Croak, was just a one-day wonder, and she lost. She was not related to anybody on the clue of the next show she was on. But in terms of coincidence, that is just mind-blowing to me. You're on Jeopardy, and the final question involves the woman you were named after, who you're related to. Yow. Okay, guys, that's your Throwback Thursday for June. Stay tuned for July and anything in between. And again, I leave you with the trepidation of God knows what the hell we'll be talking about on Monday. God knows.
Lynn Cullen Live, Monday through Thursday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. and archived at pghcitypaper.com. The opinions expressed on Lynn Cullen Live are those of the host and do not necessarily reflect the viewpoints of Pittsburgh City Paper or its advertisers.